If you don't.
No,
Meeting room is turned off in Zoom, so folks are just coming in hot. People can start their video. We ready, Brian? Thumbs up.
Is the video gonna work? Are we gonna see him?
Yeah, I'm about to turn it on.
Once it turns on, I'm live.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your speakers unmuted?
Yes.
So.
Good evening. My name is Brian LaWatch, Public Information Officer with Great Basin Team 7. Welcome to tonight's community meeting for the McCash and Little Marble fires. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to provide you with an operational update on the fire suppression progress so far and on our overall strategy for fighting these fires. This meeting will be approximately 1 hour long with time for a Q&A at the end of the presentations. You may put questions into the chat at any time during this meeting, but you may wish to hold your questions until the end as it might be answered during the presentations themselves. We may not be able to answer all your questions. If you think of a question later on, you may also call us at 530-380-2152. The focus of this meeting is on the current firefighting efforts of the McCash and Little Marble fires. We will not address other fires during this meeting. We are recording this meeting to be posted online and viewed at any time. Should our internet fail tonight, our speakers will continue their presentations and you will still be able to view them once we upload the video. You may still ask questions in the chat for us, even if our connection fails. Be sure to watch the recording to see if your question was answered. Information officers will be monitoring our social media feeds and forward questions to speakers at the end of the presentations. Joining us tonight is our Incident Commander, Mike Johnston, for opening comments. Christian Ramirez with Operations will provide us a Google Earth flyover to illustrate our past, current, and planned operations. Fire behavior analyst Joe Flores will provide us an overview of past weather and fire behavior, as well as a forecast of expected weather and fire behavior in the coming days. We will hear from Karuk Tribal Chairman Buster Adaby. And lastly, we will hear from Roberto Beltran, District Ranger on the Happy Camp and Oak Knoll Ranger Districts. Now I will pass it on to our Incident Commander.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Johnston, the Incident Commander trainee here with Great Basin Team 7. So Great Basin Team 7 has been here about 9 days now. And our team's from Nevada, Utah, and Idaho primarily. That's where our team members are from. And we've been watching the fire season out here in California this year and seeing how impacting it's been and how challenging it's been for our firefighters. And Great Basin has been fairly slow this year, but a lot of the West is certainly busy. And I know how California's had some really tough fire seasons here the last couple of years. So we're excited to be out here helping where help is needed. And we definitely have a deep respect for the fire country out here and how much fire this country sees any year from year to year to year. There's a lot of fire history out here. Most of our operations folks, including myself, have been out here many, many times over the course of our careers. About every 2 or 3 years over my 30-year career, I've spent time right in this country. For example, Happy Camp Complex and the July Complex, and 2015, the River Complex most recently were the fires that we were on. And it's a tough country to fight fire in. And we know it takes strong teamwork to fight fire in this country, and we're a customer service oriented team. So we've had tight relationships with both the Klamath and Six Rivers National Forest, their agency administrators and their fire leadership. to ensure we can get the best information and come up with the best plans out here. Additionally, we're tied in with the Karuk tribe, identifying cultural interests and ceremonial sites so we can protect those interests as well. We're also tied in with the Siskiyou and Humboldt counties to ensure we're well coordinated as it relates to closures, evacuations, and that kind of stuff as necessary. The other thing I'd like to mention is just the national situation this year. We're at preparedness level 5, and we've been at preparedness level 4 or 5 for basically 90 days now, and that's setting a record. Most of the Western states have had really active fire seasons this year, and none worse than California, of course. There's a lot of large fires going on, and the firefighters are stretched really thin across the Western United States. And because of that, we're having to prioritize fires, and because of the communities at risk out here, we have a fairly good amount of resources out here to help with this fire. And we have to be very strategic with the resources that we have with a fire this large, and we're prioritizing the values at risk. We certainly want to address the communities of Happy Camp, surrounding in holdings, Orleans, Soames Bar, and everything else around the fire to the north and east. So we're going to be very strategic. We're going to pick the best places where we have the highest probability at success, and we're going to do our best to keep this fire herded away from your interest. I'll be around to answer questions, but I'm going to pass it over to the operations section chief at this point. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Christian Ramirez, Planning Ops for Team 7. So what I want to do is go over some of the past, where applicable, present actions and future planned actions of Team 7 and the McCash fire. And I also want to address the Little Marble fire, and we'll talk briefly about that. And then also want to, as we talk, we'll get to those other points that I want to get after. So starting at in Woolly Creek, you'll see where the Woolly Creek has crossed over the drainage there and is posing a danger to Sam's Bar. I mean, we've got time, but that's down there. Thank you. Sam's Bar. So we're working and we're doing some indirect line. We've been picking up a plan from the previous team, picking up the line off Iron Phone Road, improving that down to Camp 3, which goes all the way into Sam's Bar. And there's some variations there that we want to utilize, put some hand line in certain areas. But at the end of the day, we want to apply fire to the landscape when appropriate to give us the best chance to protect that area. So moving from there, we want to move up to up the highway 96, and you'll see that we have a little bit of control line already in place, some black line. But there's a few spot fires that occurred in the last 2 or 3 days with some of this heating. So we still have to pay attention to that. It's minimally staffed, a couple engines, just looking and making sure that things are done. We did put a little hose lay and dozer line. And so, yeah, we have minimally staffed there, but moving up towards Independence and into Elk Creek Elk Creek drainage, you can see that we've done a little bit of work there. In the past, as the last team they had some direct line and they were attempting to go direct in there. That did not work to our advantage, so we had to back off. We're looking at Titus Ridge, and above Chicken Ladder, there's also another chunk of dozer line that we put in that ties back into Elk Creek. So this is an opportunity for us as the fire in the Sulphur, Lick Creek, Bishop Creek drainage starts to burn. Over the past few days, that has grown a bit, but not too much. So today was pretty moderated with the inversion that we had. And we utilized helicopters to keep it at bay and not burn with the ferocity that it could. So that's an opportunity for us at some point. We might apply fire if we have that opportunity and burn off the Titus Ridge and that piece of dozer line above Chicken Ladder. But what I want to go over to is off to the east. There is Huckleberry. There's another area of concern. It's burning in off the west side of Huckleberry Mountain, and you can see that there's a few spots up above that and then off to the east. So that we have time there, but what I want to talk about now is the big picture. What we're focused on is an indirect piece of line. If we go back up Elk Creek and you follow that to the China Grade Road, and then you take that around and you follow that to Little Wolf Place. All those places I just mentioned, we've improved. We've put water handling equipment at the primary residences, and we feel like that's the best chance that we have to protect Happy Camp, Curly Jack, and the area around that. At the same time, I want to assure you that we put water handling equipment in Elk Creek subdivision for that protection as well. And then Grider Ridge is also another feature where we put some effort and work. Once we complete that, we will use the Frying Pan Road that we've done work on as an alternate. If we have an opportunity, we will utilize that to help stall out the fire or stop it at that point. But again, that's not what we feel like is our best chance of success. So moving on down 96, where our dozer line, hand line tie into Said Valley, we're starting to look at that. That is a ways out, and so we feel comfortable where we're at. But if we do have plans future to utilize 96 going to the east over to Scotts Bar, and we haven't had time quite yet to vet the road systems by Scotts Bar that go south. I know there's some historical features that we could utilize, but that is not our focus at the moment, but we do have that on our radar. And then, so the other thing I want to recognize is that in the wilderness, we haven't had the forces to go in there or anything like that. So, but we do recognize that there are recent fire scars. 2017 and better have been doing a good job of keeping the fire from marching. So like the Fry Pan fire of 2017, the Hay Press, there's several others that have been down there, the Yukonom on the very far west side. But so that's something we're looking at, and we have a pace map, a primary line that does encompass the whole fire, where we feel like we have the best chance. Let's talk about the Little Marble fire. The Little Marble fire started on 9/10, and we got 2 wildland fire modules. It's a full suppression fire. They've been out there for those few days, and it's looking good, but there's a lot of work left. Last report I got is that we will probably be out there till Friday. And so, yep, that's about the operational brief I've got.
All right, good evening. I'm Joe Flores. I am the fire behavior analyst with Team 7. So my job is to basically look at fuels, weather topography, that fire environment, and try to give predictions to the next day's fire growth, fire direction, the fire behavior for the fire the next day, and maybe 2 to 3 days out, depending on what the question is and trying to look at. So what I wanted to do right now is give us a picture of how we got to this point in the fire, what weather conditions, climatic conditions we've had, and kind of where we're at right now and where we could possibly be going. So are we up with the first slide? It's up. All right, so that first slide should be showing a drought map of California. And as everybody's aware, California's been in a drought, as has the rest of the Western US. And as we know, it's kind of a drought upon a drought. Last year we had a bad drought. This year we have a bad drought. They're compounding each other. And so obviously with the drought, that just, there's no moisture. So the fuels dry out, the sticks and all that dry out, and the vegetation has a hard time growing, or it doesn't grow much at all. And so our aspect of it is just there's not moisture in the fuels, and that tends to decrease that fire behavior. So we have the drought that we're aware of. If you can go on to the next slide. Okay, so that is a chart of what we call the energy release components. When you see Smokey Bear's arm out there and he's saying high fire danger, low fire danger, this is one of the metrics we use to kind of judge that fire danger. And so what this is really is just a measurement of how available all that stuff is available to burn. So how much energy it's going to release. And as you can see, the black line is this year, the red line is a historical high, the blue line is a historical low based off of many years of calculations. And then comparing this year, as you can see, it's been up there pretty high. You see right now, we're not quite to a historical high, but it's up there pretty high, that 97th, 90th percentile. So that's an indicator to us that we would have a real strong fire event, kind of like we're seeing right now. So that fire potential is there. And by expressing this to firefighters, they can kind of gauge that day and saying, all right, today's going to be a big burn day, just by saying there's that much fuel available. And Smokey Bear's arm would be up there saying, yep, high fire danger, extreme fire danger based on these levels. So I kind of that chart is updated to today. I just ran that a little bit ago, and it shows where we're at for today. And if next slide. So that, are we there? So that next slide is a map of this fire, but it shows the progression. So each color is an individual day that the fire grew, and so you lump that together in a map, and you can track the progression of the fire over time. And the graphs in there show both the daily acreage gain and then also the cumulative acres over the fire. And you can see there's one large day towards the end on there. That's actually 2 days kind of lumped together when we had some data problems. But as you can see, there's been some steady growth, and that makes sense with the dry weather we've had. It's had the fire steadily grown since it started. And some days had a lot more acres and some days didn't, just because of that fire environment, the weather, the fuels topography, the way that things came together that day to make it burn. Okay, so next slide. So current fire behavior. Today we were expecting a big burn day today. The weather indicated that we would have a lot of wind, add the wind onto the dry fuels. It indicated we would have a lot of fire today. That didn't pan out much to our advantage. That didn't, but we are set up this week for some really active fire behavior. And what I mean by that is when fires get really active, they have that crown fire. The fire rolls to the trees as a crown fire, and they put up those big columns of smoke. There are a few factors that are help kind of trying to keep that in check, but for the most part, because the fuels are so dry, that really equates to an energy release, and we get those really tall columns, and they can start moving across the landscape and spotting. And so we have that potential the next couple of days. And it still has to pan out and have those factors come together to make that happen, but that potential is there for us right now. And so then now we want to move into the future. That next slide. So these next slides, there's two pictures there. One's kind of a 7 to 10 day, and then an 8 to 14 day look with the weather, the extended forecast. And so what that's showing, by the green kind of coming down right at the northern tip of California, that's showing that there's some precipitation that's going to move into the Pacific Northwest, and looks like it's going to clip this part of the state. And so what we're expecting is around the end of the week here, that some moisture is going to move into the area and give us a little bit of moderation. And it'll stick around for a couple of days. And so when obviously that happens, we expect fire potential to decrease, and not much growth in size. Next slide. The concern, though, is that this next slide shows that it's going to dry out again. And if we can go on to the last slide. And that last slide, this comes from what we call the predictive services. It's a bunch of folks kind of like me that sit in the national office and kind of look at the fire potential across the country. And they're saying that after we get this coming through, it's going to dry out again. We have above average fire potential for the rest of the year, and that's obviously problematic. but hopefully it's not going to be too bad. And we're looking at maybe some moderated conditions, but again, on average, compared to other years, it might continue to be above average through October and November. So that's
Okay, next we will hear from Karuk Tribal Chairman Buster Atterbury.
Ayuki Koda. Hello, everyone. My name is Buster Atterbury. I'm the Karuk Tribal Chairman. And first and foremost, I want to thank everybody here, the Forest Service, and for holding this meeting and giving us an update on what's happening out there. And of course, a shout out to all the fire crews. They are definitely our heroes, and they risk their lives to save other lives. And we're especially proud of the Karuk fire crew that are working together on this effort. As you know, we last year had the Slater fire that devastated the town of Happy Camp and took out approximately 200 homes. And the Karuk tribe followed up with buying 100 trailers to help shelter the people who lost everything in the Slater fire. We want to let everybody here know that there is a possibility that if something out of the ordinary happens, we hope everything stays under control, but there are some shelter possibilities. We had set up clothing banks, food banks for people to use, and we still have access to some of those resources. And we hope that we can work together to number one, keep things under control now, and then for the future, look into preventative measures, working together. The Karuk tribe feels very comfortable working with the Klamath National Forest Supervisor, Rachel Smith, and the Happy Camp and Oak Knoll Ranger, Roberto Beltrain. They have been very receptive to all of our suggestions, and we really feel like we're on the road to working together. So when I say working together, we must remember that these forests were managed for thousands of years by the indigenous people who lived here, and you may not find those methods in the school or university textbooks, but they are real. And we have, we're very proud of our Department of Natural Resources program, Bill Tripp, Earl Crosby, and Michael Sanchez, our fire officer down there, who have been developed a climate adaptation plan. It can be found on our website at www.karuk.us. And in that climate adaptation plan, you'll see some of the things that were unwritten, the ways that the indigenous people used fire to burn off the underbrush, mostly around the lower areas around the communities. It served multiple purposes. For one, when you burned it off the lower areas, it gave a much better snowpack through the winter. While they were concerned about fires in the high country, they considered that Mother Nature's way of kind of taking care of the forest up there. Kept an eye on it in case it got down to the communities. One of the other reasons they burned off the lower areas was materials that we used, that the Karuk tribe used to make their baskets and other materials. It burned off the bear grass, which needed to be burned. And then it created an inversion level. Smoke created an inversion level, and certain times of the year, it actually lowered the temperature of the river, which triggered the run of the fish to come up. So those are just a few of the things that we want to work together with everybody. And it would be a way to combine the sciences, if you will, the old with the new, tribal ecological science with modern science. We have a good working relationship with Humboldt State, and they have a great forestry program down there. And we want to bring them up to visit our DNR project in Orleans, and they can see how we do things. And then we'll send students down there to experience the modern science. And we feel like combining those two, we can work on some long-term preventative measures. It has changed because numerous things, one of them being climate change. So we know we need more resources. This year, I heard a couple times is we lack the necessary resources that we need, and we know that this is not the only fire in the country. There's fires all through the West, and the resources are spread thin. So we want to be able to maybe look into the future a little bit and prepare so we have better resources. We have recruit more people, build up a bigger fire crew, and work towards some forest reforestation projects, whether it be logging. There's a myth out there that Karuk tribe was always against the logging. We weren't necessarily against logging. We were concerned about the way it was being done. And so there is a way, we believe, to bring some economy back into the area, but it won't be the way the corporate world did it, where they have private companies and they want to make somebody, a company rich, and they're just going after what they called, quote, the money trees. And there was no consideration for when they built roads that covered up the streams and the creeks that fed into our rivers. There is now. And those ways are have to be implemented by law, and that's a good thing. So there's many projects that we can do if we work together. I think that's the key. Again, the Karuk tribe is very pleased at the way we're going and the working relationship that we've established with the Forest Service at this time. We don't want to look backwards. We want to look forward, take care of things right now, and then look for long-term solutions. So thank you for allowing me to be here. Yoto, thank you.
Now we're going to hear from District Ranger Roberto Beltran.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy days to join us here tonight. I'll try to be brief. I do want to say thank you to the team for being here and helping us with this fire. And thank you to the chairman for the kind words, and thanks for the folks from the tribe that are helping us to be sensitive to the values that are out here, and that will continue to be sensitive. And we've been working well together out there. Just kind of going around the fire kind of quickly, you know, we have been looking at the totality of everything here and sort of planning for a worst case scenario. And we don't think it'll happen, but we have been planning and set up some points where there could be evacuation warnings and orders. And we've thought them out very carefully. So should we issue any of those, please take them seriously. Of particular interest to us is what's going on in the north here and the potential there. Additionally, kind of down south in the Woolly Creek piece, we're paying very close attention to that. And I know some of you have had some real concerns there. So just know that we're paying attention to those pieces in particular, as well as the whole fire. And just once again, thank you for taking the time to check out this information. And with that, I'll step aside so any questions can be answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to our presenters. We have some questions coming in, and our Instant Commander, Mike Johnston, is going to address a couple of the first coming our way.
Hi again. So there's a couple questions about what we're going to be doing up here around the Chicken Ladder Road. And then there's also a question about what we're going to do down on the Salmon River corridor. And before I go into the specifics of what we're looking at out there, I want to kind of talk about the strategic overview and maybe what we can expect a little bit and our priorities. Our first priority, of course, is Happy Camp. I know the Slater fire burned through here last year and damaged a lot of people's personal homes and economic interest and cultural resources probably out there as well. And we want to try to keep this fire out there. That's why this is our #1 priority. As the wind's shifting around to the northeast, we're certainly looking at the Salmon River corridor down there, and we're moving resources down there to start doing point protection, identify places where we can stop the fire. We're looking at Portuguese Ridge down there. There was some crews in there a few years back that built a hand line in there on Portugal Ridge. If we have the resources and the time to do something in there on Portugal, we'll be looking at that. We're also prepping along Salmon River corridor if that ends up being our fallback. So those are the two options that we're looking at down there, and certainly addressing those to the best of our ability. Out to the east of this fire, I don't want to ignore that because I also know that there's homes and communities, Scott Valley, and such along the river corridor up there as well. So the Happy Camp complex, which I was on in 2014, is providing somewhat of a buffer out there. And the 2017 fire scars that Christian mentioned, like Hay Press and Island, are also, those are providing really good buffers. But the 2014 fire scar, it's burning a little bit, primarily on the south aspects. When it gets to the north aspects, it's really slowing down. It may never get out of this fire footprint out here in the Happy Camp complex, but in case it does, we're prepping around the river corridor there. Now, probably the biggest concern for both the crew and the community of Happy Camp is this area up through here. It hasn't burned in recent history, and that's the area that's going to want to burn most actively, and that's why we're making it a priority out there. We've put these lines in along Titus Road. The team previous to us had the line in Chicken Ladder. There's a line down Malone. The 10 road is being prepped. We're also looking at lines out here in Wilson and prepping right here near the houses here at the mouth of Elk Creek. So people are probably wondering why we're not maybe burning out right now and taking some of those actions. Our firefighters have been up there looking at it. We've had hot shot crews up there. Their concerns are adding more fuel to the fire. And if we're going to put fire up there, we're going to do it under the right conditions. There's also safety zones, ingress, egress concerns. The wind has been shifting quite often up there. I've heard 5 times in like 15 minutes sometimes. And when we have those kind of conditions and as dry as it and volatile as it is, we don't want to add more fuel to the fire to the fire if we can help it. And patience sometimes is our best tool. Modeling is showing us that this fire is going to just continue to slowly burn towards Chicken Ladder. And when we get the right anchor, the right conditions, we're going to look at checking this. We've heard concerns about it spotting pretty readily up there, and it may be a slowing action, but it could also speed the fire up. And that's the last thing we want to do. If the fire gets on the west side of Titus, that's why we're looking at these lines up here in Wilson and in other areas. That's tough well, all this country is tough to fight fire in, but we're going to do it very methodically. We're going to make sure we have the firefighters on board, and we're going to do it as successfully as we can. There is weather coming in at the end of the week, and if we get rain, quarter inch, half inch is potential out there. That changes the game a lot, and maybe we can go in there direct. I'd hate to put a bunch of fire out there, start a bunch of spot fires on the west side of Titus when we have this maybe window of opportunity, and nothing's telling us that it's going to impact us through our modeling and our experts that are out there on the fire line. So hopefully that answers the questions, and we're reevaluating it every day. Our firefighters want to do the best job we can for the community and protect your interests. Thank you.
Okay, we have a question that just came up that I think Christian, our operations section chief, could answer. What in particular are you doing in the Salmon River corridor?
Good question. So as we complete that line off of the Camp 3 road and make our plan there to get to that Highway 93, we do want to look down the canyon. Today we had Highway 96 structure group go down the canyon and look at, I believe it's Butler Creek. Sounds familiar? But they looked at that, and they're keeping their eyes on that, and just seeing what they can do to improve one, the structure protection plans, and two, see how defendable the Highway 93 corridor is. But we're going to continue to keep moving down the highway as resources allow. But like IC Johnston said, our priority is some of that fire up north and in Woolly Creek that we need to pay attention to first.
So far, we're not seeing any more questions come in either on Facebook or through the Zoom chat. If you have questions, please bring them up. And remember, if you think you might have questions but can't quite phrase a question now, you can still ask it later on and we can still answer it. You could call us at 530-380-2152. You can also email us at 2021.mccash@firenet.gov. And it looks like we might have another question coming our way. How much of the total burn may be viewed as beneficial low-intensity burns? And we'll get Mike on here.
All right, I'll do my best to answer this one. Not being from the local area, I can't speak directly to that question, but I can speak generally. And what our chairman from the crew, Buster, said kind of speaks to some of that too. I know this country burned under a pretty regular fire return interval and under low to moderate intensity. And generally that's going to be good for the fire. But when it's dry and we're hitting peak indices, and it can burn pretty hot and have some adverse effects. And I know working for the Forest Service, we always wait till after the fire to talk about benefits, because we're not going to know for sure until after we assess it. We do some burned area satellite imagery. We have people that go out to the landscape and assess it and survey it. And inevitably there's going to be some good and some bad on this fire, but it is a full suppression fire, and you know, we're not managing it for benefits. So hopefully that helps answer the question. Thank you.
Any more questions coming in? Okay. Well, like I said, you could email that email address and the phone number, and our PIOs have posted that information in the chat as well if you need it. if there's no more questions, I think we could probably end this meeting. We would like to thank you for joining us, spending some time with us tonight to learn some information about the McCash and the Little Marble fires. If you have more questions, please bring them to us. We'll try to answer them as best we can. A reminder, this is recorded, so this video will be posted to the Six Rivers National Forest Facebook page after it gets finished uploading. So you should be able to find it there at any time. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Take care and good night.